She kissed him the way actors say goodbye on stage, soft, convincing, perfectly rehearsed. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. But I did know better. I'd seen the way her eyes stayed open when their lips met. Scanning his face, measuring the effect. I'd seen how quickly she wiped her mouth afterward. As if affection were something that left a stain. Everyone said she was good for him. They said she softened him, steadied him, brought light back into the house after the chaos. Maybe that was true, once. Maybe he needed someone like her. But I learned early that love and performance can look the same if you only watch from far enough away. The first time I realized her kiss was a lie was the night of the dinner. She had planned everything down to the smallest detail: candles, music, wine. The kind of meal you make when you want someone to remember you for the rest of their life. I'd walked in late, unseen at first, and watched her lean across the table, whisper something in his ear, then kiss him on the cheek. He smiled, the way he used to before she came. But she wasn't smiling. Her eyes flicked toward me, and for just a moment the mask slipped. There was no warmth there. No tenderness. Just calculation. That look stayed with me. Later that night, I heard their voices upstairs, low, sharp, like glass scraping against glass. She told him she was tired of pretending. That she couldn't keep giving him pieces of herself he didn't know what to do with. He said she was being dramatic. That she knew exactly what she was doing. When it was over, she came down the stairs in silence. She saw me standing in the hallway and stopped. For a second, I thought she might say something, an excuse, a confession, a threat. But instead, she smiled that perfect, practiced smile and said, "You should be in bed." I wanted to ask her if she even remembered how to love someone without turning it into a game. I wanted to tell her that I'd seen the way she kissed him. The way her lips moved but her eyes didn't. But I didn't. I just nodded and watched her walk past me. That was the moment I understood. Her affection wasn't love, it was control. Every word, every touch, every kiss was a way to remind him who had the power. And maybe that was her revenge, not for what he'd done, but for what he hadn't. For never giving her the kind of love she wanted. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and quiet denial. She acted as if nothing had happened. He did too. That was their ritual: destroy everything at night, rebuild it by morning. When he left for work, she turned to me and said, "You shouldn't eavesdrop." I met her gaze and said, "You shouldn't lie." For a moment, her face faltered, just enough for me to see the truth. There was no love there. There never had been. And yet, when he came home that night, she greeted him with another kiss. Soft, convincing, perfectly rehearsed. The lie, I realized, wasn't just hers anymore. He believed it because he needed to. And maybe that was the cruelest part: she wasn't kissing him to deceive him anymore. She was kissing him because he'd asked her to. Because sometimes, the easiest way to live with a lie is to pretend it still feels like love. The morning after, everything looked the same: too clean, too calm, too practiced. The smell of her perfume lingered faintly in the air, mixing with the sharp scent of coffee. She stood at the counter, stirring her cup slowly. Her reflection flickering in the glass of the kitchen window. From behind, she could have passed for anyone, gentle, graceful, composed. But when she turned around, that illusion shattered. There it was again, the smile. The one that never reached her eyes. The one she used like a weapon. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. The question was simple, ordinary. But everything about her voice made it sound like a test. I wanted to tell her I hadn't slept at all. That I'd been awake listening to the sound of her pacing upstairs. To the slow creak of the floorboards, to her muffled voice behind closed doors. I wanted to ask her if she rehearsed her lies before she spoke them. Instead, I said, "Fine." She smiled again, as if my lie pleased her. He came down a few minutes later, his tie slightly crooked, his eyes avoiding mine. The silence between them was almost invisible. Years of pretending had made it look like routine. She adjusted his collar for him, fingers brushing lightly against his neck. The kind of touch that should have meant tenderness. "Have a good day," she said, standing on her toes to kiss him. It was the same kiss as always, gentle, brief, perfect. And empty. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes either. Then he grabbed his keys and left without looking back. The door closed, and the silence that followed was louder than anything else. She kept staring at the door even after he was gone. Her hand hovered near her mouth, fingertips tracing her lips like she could still feel the echo of the lies she'd just told. Then she caught me watching. "You shouldn't stare," she said quietly, without turning around. "Then stop pretending," I replied. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she laughed, softly at first, then louder. Sharp enough to cut through the air. "You think I don't know?" she said, finally facing me. "You think I don't realize he only believes what he wants to believe? That's what love is. Mutual lying." Her tone was calm, but there was something else beneath it, something raw, bitter. "Maybe for you," I said. "But not for everyone." She smiled again, but this time it faltered. "You'll learn. Everyone learns eventually." The way she said it sent a chill through me. Not a threat, not even a warning, just a statement. A truth she'd already lived. I watched her walk away, her reflection fading in the window as she disappeared into the hallway. For a long time, I stayed there, staring at the space she'd left behind. Wondering if she'd always been like this, or if love had made her that way. And maybe that was the real revenge. Not the lie itself, but how perfectly she'd learned to live inside it. Later that day, I found her sitting in the garden, sunlight tracing the edges of her face. The kind of light that made everything look gentler than it really was. She was pruning the roses, careful, deliberate, as if they could feel it. She didn't look up when I stepped outside. "I used to hate roses," she said quietly, her voice carrying easily in the still air. "Too fragile. Too many thorns. But he liked them, so now I do too." There it was again, the way she said he, not your father. Like she'd erased the title, the relationship, the distance. She spoke as if he were just another man she'd chosen once and kept out of habit. "You don't have to pretend," I said, though my voice came out softer than I meant. She laughed under her breath. "Pretend? Oh, sweetheart, pretending is the only thing keeping this house from falling apart." Her words were so calm that I almost missed how cruel they were. She set down the shears and finally looked at me. Her eyes were the same as always, sharp, clear, impossible to read. "You think lies are something you choose," she said. "But you don't. Not really. They start small, harmless, necessary. And before you know it, they're the only language you have left." I stood there, unsure what to say. The garden smelled like earth and iron, and the quiet between us felt heavier than the heat. "Does he know?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "He knows enough. He just doesn't want to know more." There was no malice in her tone, only exhaustion. As if she had spent years building something she no longer believed in but couldn't bring herself to tear down. "You think I enjoy this?" she asked suddenly, almost as if she'd read my thoughts. You think I don't remember what it felt like to mean something? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She already knew. She picked up the shears again and started cutting away at the rosebush, severing stems with quick, precise movements. He wanted perfection, she said. So I gave it to him. Every smile, every word, every kiss. It's what he needed. What he still needs. And what happens when someone depends on your lie? You keep lying. You get good at it. You start to believe it's love. Her voice broke slightly on that last word, so quietly I almost missed it. She didn't look at me again, but her hand trembled as she trimmed another branch. What about you? I asked. Don't you ever get tired of lying? She said, her eyes still on the roses. All the time. I waited for her to say more, but she didn't. Instead, she took one of the cut flowers and held it up to the light, examining it. The petals were perfect, crimson and flawless, but the stem bled where she had cut it. Funny, she murmured, almost to herself. It's always the prettiest ones that die the fastest once you separate them from their roots. She set the flower aside and stood, brushing dirt from her hands. Tell me, she said, turning to face me. If you knew a lie could save something, would you still tell the truth? I opened my mouth, but no answer came. She smiled, not kindly but not cruelly either, just knowingly. That's what I thought. And then she walked past me, back toward the house, leaving the roses behind. Red and beautiful and bleeding quietly in the sun. It was then I understood that her kisses had never been about affection. They were her armor, each one a perfect disguise, a small, silent act of self-preservation. And maybe the reason they always felt like lies was because she had forgotten what truth was supposed to feel like. That evening, I found her in the kitchen again, standing by the sink, her back to me. The faint glow from the stovetop light traced her silhouette. The soft rise and fall of her shoulders as she breathed. She was washing a glass slowly, over and over, long after it was already clean. You don't have to keep pretending, I said quietly. She didn't turn around. Pretending is all I have left. Her voice was flat, but there was something behind it, something brittle. On the edge of breaking. You think he doesn't see it? I asked. The way you look at him? The way your mouth says yes, but your eyes don't? She stopped scrubbing. The sound of the running water filled the space between us. He sees what he wants to, she said finally. That's how men love, they build the version of you that doesn't make them question themselves. The water ran over her hands, pooling in the sink, until she turned off the tap. She dried the glass carefully, as if it were fragile enough to shatter at a whisper. Do you love him? I asked. She laughed quietly. Love isn't the right word. Love implies choice. What's the right word, then? She set the glass on the counter, turned, and leaned against it, folding her arms. Dead, she said simply. Her eyes caught the light just enough for me to see that they were tired, not from lack of sleep but from carrying too much. I owed him peace, she said. After everything that came before me. I thought I could give it to him. I thought if I smiled enough, if I was soft enough, it would make him forget. But people don't want peace. They want a version of it that looks the way they imagine it should. There was no bitterness in her voice. Just understanding, the kind that comes after too many years of pretending to be someone you're not. You don't have to keep paying for him, I said. You don't owe him anything. She smiled at that, a faint, crooked thing that made her look suddenly human. That's what you think, she said. But when you build your life around someone's need, you stop knowing where they end and you begin. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her that it wasn't too late. That she could still walk away, still find something real. But I didn't believe it myself. She picked up a towel, began wiping the counter again, though it was spotless. Do you know why my kiss feels like a lie? She asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Because it is, she continued. Not because I want it to be. But because I can't remember what honesty feels like anymore. The words hit like a quiet confession, heavier than any apology could have been. Then why keep doing it? I asked. She looked at me, and for the first time, there was no performance in her face. Because lies are the only thing that still keep him calm. And I'm tired of the sound of breaking things. There was nothing left to say. She turned back to the sink, her reflection caught faintly in the window. For a moment, she looked like a ghost, half here, half somewhere else. Then she whispered, almost to herself, he believes my kiss. That's enough. I left her there, standing alone in the quiet kitchen. Surrounded by all the things she kept spotless, all the things she couldn't fix. And as I walked away, I realized something I hadn't before. Her lies weren't acts of betrayal. They were survival. She kissed him not because she loved him, but because it was safer than telling the truth. The next morning, I woke to the sound of footsteps, soft, deliberate, moving from room to room. She was cleaning again, not in the frantic, restless way she did when she was angry. But slowly, like she was trying to erase herself from every corner of the house. By the time I came downstairs, the smell of coffee filled the air. She was sitting at the table, hands folded neatly, not drinking, not moving. Just waiting. The light from the window hit her face in that fragile way it does right before sunrise, where everything looks gentler, almost forgiving. He's gone, she said. I looked toward the door, half expecting to see his shoes still by the mat. His coat hanging on the hook. But they weren't. The space was empty. Gone where? She didn't answer right away. She picked up the cup, took a small sip, then set it down again. He left before dawn. Said he needed time. The way she said it, flat, measured, made it sound like a line she'd already practiced. What did you say to him? Her eyes flicked up, and for the first time, I saw something close to fear there. The truth, she said. And it didn't sound like I meant it. I sat across from her, unsure whether to comfort or accuse. She looked so composed, so painfully calm. But her hands were trembling just enough to make the cup rattle against the saucer. Was it worth it? I asked. Her gaze drifted to the window, to the faint outline of the garden outside. No one wins these things, she said. You just stop pretending there's something left to save. There was no bitterness in her tone, only fatigue, a quiet surrender. She reached for something on the table. At first, I thought it was her wedding ring, but it wasn't. It was a folded note. She slid it toward me. I wrote this for him, she said. But I don't think he'll read it. I hesitated before unfolding it. The handwriting was small and precise, every letter perfectly spaced. It wasn't long, just a few lines. I loved you in the only way I knew how, by keeping you safe from the truth. I thought that was mercy. Maybe it was just fear. I set the note down carefully. She didn't look at it again. What will you do now? I asked. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile people wear when they've run out of things to lose. I'll wait, she said. Not for him. For the moment I stopped caring that he's gone. The simplicity of it unsettled me. She wasn't hoping for reconciliation. She wasn't clinging to regret. She was just empty. When I stood to leave, she said something that stopped me cold. You think my kiss was a lie, she said softly, without looking up. But every lie starts with truth. I just held on to it too long. I wanted to ask what that meant, but she didn't give me the chance. She rose from the table, gathered her things with slow, practiced movements, and left the room. The sound of her footsteps faded up the stairs, then disappeared entirely. The only thing left was the faint smell of her perfume and the cup she'd abandoned, its surface still rippling slightly. Outside, the garden glowed under the first real light of day. The roses she'd cut yesterday were still lying where she'd left them, beautiful, vivid, and dying. I watched them for a long time before realizing that was her, too, not cruel, not innocent. Just someone who had mistaken endurance for love, silence for peace, and lies for kindness. Her kiss had always been a lie, yes, but the cruelest part wasn't that she deceived him, it was that she believed she had to.